welcome to Series 19, Space for Women show, accelerating the roadmap to a sustainable human civilization beyond Earth, with our special guest of honor, Dr. Egbert Edelbrock. He's the CEO and founder at SpaceBorn United. Mrs. Malak Trabelsi Loeb, she's the international business law and space law and policy senior legal associate. And today's moderator would be Dr. Rowena Christiansen. She's a medical doctor, space medicine advocate, and space health consultant. So welcome to the show, everyone.
Thank you very much, here. I'd like to introduce our first guest today, who is Dr. Egbert Edelbrock, who's CEO of SpaceBorn United, which researches and enables the conditions for human reproduction in space. Egbert is passionate about accelerating space life science research, helping humanity beyond the next frontier, and becoming a multi-planetary species. Egbert's interest in space exploration accelerated up to becoming a sperm donor and learning about assisted reproductive technology. This inspired him to explore re-engineering existing IVF technology for application in space. He earned his PhD in courage development in organizations, connecting the domains of biology, neurology, and psychology. He enjoys innovating and exploring boundaries by connecting domains that usually remain separated. So over to you. Thank you very much, Egbert.
Thank you, Rowena, for the warm introduction. I will start my presentation in two parts. So I will start with explaining some of the main challenges and motives for expanding our civilization and human reproduction in space. And then secondly, I will focus on what we at SpaceBorn United specifically contribute to all this. And of course, I will also explain how this helps to promote the STEM education and the careers for women and girls and the social development goals. But first, the safety concerns. I guess most of you are familiar with the IPCC reports that were made by thousands of scientists warning humanity about climate change and the effects on biodiversity and extinction rates. Many countries seem to listen and improve things, but some big polluting countries don't improve. And if that doesn't change drastically, big parts of our planet will no longer be suitable for human life in only several decades. And even when we succeed, there are still additional threats, like pandemics, like even COVID-19 and the following ones, or nuclear threats, or artificial intelligence. So to safeguard the human civilization, backup settlements beyond Earth seem a good idea by, well, actually pretty much all the space agencies. And they're all working hard towards this goal. Of course, there's more than just averting these threats to life on Earth. I mean, the settlements and the preparations also provide many other opportunities for future generations, but also for innovations that improve life on Earth today. These settlements aim to become independent from Earth eventually, and that means we also need to learn how to reproduce beyond Earth, and that will take a lot of time. So it's strange that there is such a strong focus in the space sector on engineering. Most agencies are just focused on building spacecraft, while the ambitions that we all have require a much stronger focus on space life science. But this remains a challenge that seems to be difficult to address for the agencies. For example, it's difficult to spend taxpayer money on ethically delicate research. NASA, for example, tries to make it seem like they do quite a lot in that area, but if you look at the budget details, it reveals that it's really marginal. But they do encourage explicitly focused companies like SpaceBorn United to address life science challenges like reproduction. Accelerating space life science will also push gender equality in space, because their focus is shifting more towards women, and that is enabling more female astronauts to go on missions. If we look at history, we can see that people always felt some natural urge to explore new worlds. We explored the seas, the earth, we've explored the skies, and it helped us to find new resources and also new skills that enabled us to overcome different and complex challenges. And today's changing world requires us to keep pushing the boundaries of our imagination and technology. And this will create more possible futures that we can choose from. And as a global community, we continue to grow and evolve by exploring the unknown. Space exploration to many is like the ultimate expression to the human desire to push our boundaries and achievements. And I couldn't resist including this little bit cheesy quote from Carl Sagan. And there's not much to add. Maybe that with my former courage development research, well, it is my passion to help expand the human comfort zone. But the progress in space research is not just fueled by global safety concerns or by exploration instincts. Nations are competing for who controls space and for showing off their prestige. So the race is no longer just the Russians against the US. Several upcoming space nations joined, and they will all want to claim unique achievements. Many want to put the first woman on the moon, for example. Many want to put the first human on Mars. But also being the first nation in history to enable conception or even childbirth in space appears to be an attractive milestone even in our evolution. So several nations have already expressed their interest or their ambitions. Not always pure scientific motives, but that's an additional opportunity to boost the space life science and also the public awareness. So moving on to the second part of the presentation. How does Spaceborne United contribute to the expansion and the sustainability of human civilization? Well, we do three things mainly. We research the conditions for human reproduction in space. And of course, we build on all the research that has already been done by many others. And we translate these research outcomes into two things. First, into mission designs. And secondly, we translate the outcomes in biomedical equipment that is required for those missions. We are supported, fortunately, by several research and industry partners, mainly from Europe and the US. And it requires to combine the expertise of both the biomedical aspects, the ethical, the legal, and also, of course, the space technology domains. And we connect our research goals to the existing international research roadmaps for space exploration, such as the ISAC. Oh, and by the way, this beautiful building that looks a little bit like an alien spaceship is in the Netherlands, and we are very happy to have an office inside it. So how does our work contribute to the benefits for the Space for Women goals and the social development goals? We do several projects with students in the Netherlands and in the UK. And we are also exploring options in India. And I have to give many credits for Cranfield University in the UK. You can see Sharon here. She just finished her individual research project last week after half a year of hard work. And she has really done amazing work, which is really valuable for our program. And before Sharon, 4 other girls did similar projects with us. And the great work that Sharon achieved also helped to scale up the research projects with Cranfield University. So next year, it provides 4 additional research projects. Reproduction research obviously requires a strong focus on female biology, and which also provides output which is beneficial to, well, increasing the opportunities for female astronauts and careers. But looking at the missions that we prepare, reproduction must be seen as something that is built from multiple stages. It is not just one thing. So conception is a different challenge than childbirth or embryo development. And in our first mission, we focus on conception and early embryo development in space. Angelo Vermeulen has already mentioned in a previous show, he told a little bit about our activities that we call ARTIS, which stands for Assisted Reproductive Technology in Space, or in short, IVF technology in space. So this includes that we allow male and female cell samples inside an incubator to conceive and to grow. And this device, this embryo incubator, is launched into orbit with the Virgin Launcher 1 system. And it will orbit the Earth for 5 days. And afterwards, the embryos will, before they will eventually also be placed back in the wombs of the mothers. On the left, you can see the Virgin orbit rocket carrier, the Cosmic Girl, and the Launcher 1 rocket. And the Launcher 1 is released at about 12 kilometers of altitude. And this is a really smart and flexible system that we also plan to use for this mission. And on the right, we also see leading the radiology lives appears to be more attractive to women than the engineering projects. And we are happy that this mission is also helping to accelerate these opportunities for women and girls. But regarding this mission, before it is ethically responsible and acceptable to do all this with human cells and embryos, of course, the equipment needs to be thoroughly tested. And there will be validation missions with animal cells first. In the life science that we know a lot about the effects of normal Earth gravity. And we also know a lot about microgravity, but there are large gaps when we look at everything in between, like moon gravity or Mars gravity. And it's crucial that we fill those gaps. So we need to know, for example, how we can compensate for the negative health effects on Mars. So this triggers a question. Just a second. Oh, the second mission, childbirth in space. This is not just this is not including pregnancy. So this is just a 24 to 36 hour mission, and there's not a really fixed year when this mission could take place yet. It's just an estimation. It could be about 15 years, we think. But too many aspects still need to be looked at thoroughly. But we shouldn't be paralyzed by the emotional and assumed or imagined risks. So we should move on from the elephant in the room to dialogue. We have to explore rational risks and how to deal with them. Unfortunately, already many of the identified risks can be addressed safely. Especially the G-forces are still not completed in the research. The G-force peaks that occur during launch and re-entry require additional research. But fortunately, there are more and more modern spacecrafts, for example, like the Dream Chaser, So that all triggers a lot of questions, and one of the questions is, why won't the other big agencies or the commercial organizations, as I mentioned before, a taxpayer money issue? And as one of our advisors who was supervised by NASA said, the political explosive potential of taxpayer money being spent on sex research in space, that's not working very well for example, NASA or ESA. Because it's still too ethically controversial. It's also changing political leadership. Obama has a different perspective than Trump, and maybe Joe Biden will be the next one. He could have he could change the direction of NASA again, and that's not helping in achieving long-term goals. So that is fortunately why these agencies, especially NASA, they explicitly say and embrace focused companies like ourselves to address this challenge. So we choose our name, Spaceborne United, not randomly, but we have united in our name because we strongly value an inclusive approach. We believe in a world where the differences between people are celebrated and opportunities are shared. So if this could be an historical step in evolution to, for the first time in history, enable conception in space and later on hopefully also childbirth in space, that is something that we should share together, and it could help to unite and connect people from different regions and religions and races, and hopefully also remind us of our responsibility to pass on this planet in a good way to the future generations. If we look at the future of reproduction in space, there are interesting developments going on. I think many of you might have heard about this lamp, who is in an artificial womb. And in the Eindhoven University of Technology, Professor Giet Oei is working on a human version already. It is still being developed, and it is not in a testing phase, but the developments are going on, and it will also help space exploration developments, and it will create opportunities to protect otherwise vulnerable women for radiation damage or damage to their reproductive organs. And you can look even further into the future, like Professor Koen van Mensvoort is doing. He started the initiative Next Nature Network, including the project Reproductive, which is about looking even decades further in the future. And they're actually creating, well, fictive futures, but they could become true one day, where they're even looking at animals giving birth to human babies. But that's many years ahead, and maybe it's not going to happen. We have to focus on today also. But this is the main part of my presentation. And well, it's a small step for a baby, but a giant baby step for mankind, if you ask me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Egbert, for a really fascinating and interesting presentation. And there's obviously a lot of work going on that people never get to hear about. And I think your presentation today has been very enlightening in letting us know about some of those things and the work that your company in particular is doing. And it was also really nice to hear about the things that you're doing to support gender equality and STEM opportunities for women through research. So thank you very much. I think it's wonderful that you're involved in that very worthwhile initiative. And,
we're happy to share these opportunities and our work. And thank you so much for replying to all of it.
Oh, thank you, and we'll definitely be coming back to you later on when we have our questions for the panel. And so thank you again for the moment. And now we're going on to our other special presenter for today, who is Mrs. Malak Loeb, who is an entrepreneur, futurist, strategist, and senior legal associate specializing in international business law and international space law, an adjudicator and international commercial arbitrator. Mrs. Loeb is a lecturer in international relations and diplomacy, a multidisciplinary academic researcher, a writer and public speaker, and a PhD candidate in international space law. She's advocating for sustainable space for humanity, addressing the complex space, socio-economic and environmental interrelated dimensions. She's also a human rights activist and strives to combat human trafficking and gender inequality. Mrs. Loeb has received the title of Champion of Tolerance from the UAE Ministry of Tolerance in 2018. She strives to empower women and raises awareness to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So over to you, Malak, for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the kind words, and thank you for having me here. I'm also a member of Space Connects, so this is very, very important for me to highlight. And today I'm not going to, usually I speak about space economy, I speak about human trafficking or about other aspects related to my profession. Today I'm going to speak as a mother who's having her child into space. He's 12 years old, and it's related to sustainable space for humanity also. So I will be speaking about preparing multi-planetary generation, and based on my personal experience with my son, who's advocating also education for preparing children of his generation and future one. So he's very fascinated about space. He's doing things on his own based on the habits of monks and the parenting skills we've got for him, and we'd like that to be the norm for everyone else. And that's what we do in this community with Space Connects and with other communities in order to anchor a sustainable culture in our children, because they are the future, and they are the future of the technology and science through ethics and through norms and values that we need to anchor into them in order to go and expand and evolve into space. So I would like to share my screen for a quick presentation. All right, so preparing multi-planetary generation, and we start the eye-opener. What is multi-planetary species? So it is beyond Earth boundary, the new frontier, there we go. First of all, as Earthlings, and I call ourselves as Earthlings and not nations, because when we go into space, we are Earthlings and not nations. Like that, we go with the mindset that it's united. We are one, and we're not competing. And that one of the problems that we are seeing, and Egbert talked about also, is the race. This race mentality should be taken off from our children. Mind in order to evolve with the right mindset. So Earthlings, it's all about the mindset. So we start like that, and I think it's a good start. So I'm going to say a quote. Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. He's all my friends, the rocket scientists, they know him very well. He's the father of rocket science. He's Russian, and he's an advocate of cosmos. And he was one of the scientists, not the first one, but one of the scientists who advocate for human expansion and evolution beyond Earth boundaries. And what he said, men must at all costs overcome the Earth gravity and have in reserve the space at least of the solar system. All kind of danger wait for him on the Earth. We have said a great deal about the advantages of migration into space, but not all can be said or even imagined. And this was from the aim of astronautics in 1929. So multiplanetary species advocacy of Elon Musk is not new. It was there since antiquity, since men started looking at the skies and thinking how he can go, and it was an inspiration. Then it was like, what is beyond and how can we go? So the notion and I called it multiplanetarism. This one doesn't exist in dictionary, and I'm working on a philosophy. It's called multiplanetarism, based on cosmism and based on all the evolution and the philosophies that we are until now we human or humanity have thought about and write about. And integrating very, very important aspects, which is very important, the ethical side about the whole thing, and oneness and consciousness. Well, it's not new, but putting it together into new modern, let's say, idea, I think it's worth the trial. I'm not a philosopher per se. Philosophy, it's part of international diplomacy, and or law. It's based on philosophy, but I'm not a philosopher. I try my best to do, as long as I have the right mindset and try to help humanity with the other fellow human nice people that they are around. So we try to do our best in order to evolve. So the notion I cannot. Yeah, the notion. Here come our friend Elon Musk, okay? The man of this year. What he said about being multiplanetary, he said, I think there is a strong humanitarian argument for making life multiplanetary. In order to safeguard the existence of humanity in the event that something catastrophic were to happen, in which case being poor or having disease would be irrelevant because humanity would be extinct. It would be like good news. The problems of poverty and disease have been solved, but the bad news is there aren't any humans left. And multiplanetary definition, it's difficult to find one that I could rely upon. The only one that I could grasp, it was from definitions.net. So it's about being, existing, involving, or relating to multiple planets. And then we go to, all right, the rationale why we need to go to become multiplanetary. So why do we need to become multiplanetary? This is the question, and a lot of people they ask why are we putting tax money for this? But what is very important is a simple question: to sustain humanity's evolution and take it to the next frontier, to the new frontier, and to prevent human species from extinction. And it's very, very important. Then we go to, is it multiplanetary or multiplanetarism, as I called it? Is it about Mars? Because we are looking at the Mars missions and the race to Mars. Is it only about Mars, the philosophy of this, what I'm talking about? Actually, it's not only about Mars. It is about consciousness, it is about ethics and values, it is about habits of mind, and it is about cosmic culture, which is not space culture that we are seeing right now. It's beyond just small curriculums in school talking about planets and no, it's more than that. The cosmic culture, I will come to it, but it's beyond a physical reach. It starts within us, Earthlings. It's our minds. And from the minds, we can make everything else happening. Technology, development, science, and so on. So it starts with the consciousness. And here it's not all about what is the state of Earthlings' consciousness, that I'm given only an idea. what is it like? What are the main point of the state of Earthlings consciousness that I'm talking about? It is it's the state of consciousness to be aware and responsive in the quest of contribute to humanity's progress and adopt a cosmic perspective about life as one species, one Earthlings, one. We're not nations, and this is very important. To face existential threats that could affect Earthlings as existential threats to all humanity, and thus the consciousness of oneness. Also, it's about to have emotional intelligence and existential awareness to handle internal psychological and external social conflicts. This can be out of the consciousness sphere. Some people, they would say it's not really, but for me, I integrate it because it's I think it has to do with consciousness. If I'm wrong, I mean, it's always debatable, and I'm going to write some papers about it, and I would like to hear some philosopher about it. So now I go to the next habits of mind. There are traits and skills. We will talk about it when we are talking about children habits of mind later. And here we are talking about ethics and values, which is the most important thing, that without it, no science will be will reach its why we want to have technology and why we want to reach technological developments and scientific developments, because we want the betterment of humanities. Without ethics and values, we will not reach to that goal. So the question when we talk about ethics and values is, do we have to embrace specific sets of ethics and values in the quest of becoming a multi-planetary species? Is it different than what we have right now? What is it about? And my answer, without reading all that, and I will go through some of them, but ethics and values, they should be ethics and values. It's not because we are on Earth we should have one, separate set of ethics and values. And if we want to think about outer space and go into outer space, we have different sets. But ethics and values depends on the culture and depends on the environment. And when we are Earthlings into outer space, living there, we did not try it there. We saw only what's going on in the space station. It's the International Space Station. It's different. But when we are there on Mars, or let's say on other space stations that it is commercial or it's a habitat or so on, I think it's worth seeing how we can evolve the values and ethics and the essence of values and ethics that we have on Earth in order to adapt into space. But due to the space environment's risky nature, there are different set of questions and not ethics and values that must be answered when it comes to any activities related to space. And here, any activities, even we are here, and this is a problem with the international space law and the gaps that are going on, and space race and arms going on, and the race to arm and the race in space. Well, if the international law or the law anyhow, it's not based on ethics and values of oneness and consciousness and everything, it will continue like that, and we will take the race and we'll take the fight, and we'll not fight, but the wars into outer space. We don't want that. We want to evolve. We get into consciousness that we need to evolve as one. We need to go with a different mindset. So here comes technology and science. They need to be ethical in order to evolve, and we need to have ethical approach into that and taking action. So what are the priorities? One most important question when we are talking about ethics and values, and in space, taking into consideration the space risky nature. So there are different sets of questions that need to be answered. So what are the priorities? What are the reasons behind these priorities? And based on which criteria? What are the criteria leading to choices made? Will these choices generate significant adverse or irreversible effects in the cosmos? And here, I'm not talking about Mars, I'm not talking about Earth, I'm not talking about any celestial body, I'm talking about the cosmos. This is the mentality that we need to have. We need to have the mentality that we are Earthlings, and if we evolved physically over there, we need to take into consideration the cosmos and not only our benefits or our interests. So the effect could be on planetary environment, cultural diversity, planetary ecological and climatological issues related to transport of bacteria and viruses and exploitation of resources. And also getting human into the picture, that we are one, and we cannot feel that we are, because we reach into space before the others, we are better, and we leave people behind. So this is very important. So also another question is how to have a common agreement on the best way to benefit from the common heritage of all mankind. In international space law, we call outer space the common heritage of all mankind, because it is. And that's why we don't want to go with the mentality of nations. So cosmic culture, it's my favorite one. Sustainable cosmic culture. What is this? I came up with the idea, okay, cosmic culture exists, sustainability exists, so I put both together, and sustainable, it's a culture that embraces a given society, language, symbols, the culture in general. It embraces a given society's language, symbols, values, beliefs, and artifacts. Since culture influences beliefs, ethics, and behavior, which makes it the foundation to sociological perspective, it is critical for Earthlings to circumvent differences. Yes, this is the most important part. That's why I love it so much. Circumvent differences. How could Earthlings circumvent societal differences in the quest to become multiplanetary species? The answer: through adopting sustainable cosmic culture based on a shared philosophy, vision, common goals, and endeavor. A sustainable cosmic culture is a culture that roots various principles on long-term vision. And this is important because Egbert talked earlier about the short vision of the political agendas, and that's a problem for us. Long-term visions related to sustainable development principles such as inter- and intra-generational equity, and the right to a healthy and productive life in harmony with the environment. Cosmic space culture that I thought of should include long-term sustainability to the cosmic culture. This means to root the idea that Earthlings must maintain space activities indefinitely into the future in a manner that equitable access to the use and exploration of outer space is ensured for peaceful purposes, very important. Such use should be taken into consideration for future generation without deteriorating the environment. Then next. So now we go to the next one, and I will try to be, yes, from global citizen mindset to an Earthling multiplanetary mindset. You see that picture right there with Game of Thrones? Well, I found it online. Houston, winter is coming. So if we go with the existing mindset, this is what will happen. The Game of Thrones, will happen in space. Well, Earthlings will have to embrace a cosmic mindset. In his evolutionary journey, excuse my French accent sometimes, humanity must evolve beyond the Earth boundary without the colonization ideology. I keep on hearing it. I keep hearing NASA people saying colonization of Mars. Come on, guys, come on. Take away that ideology. It's not colonization. It must not base its endeavors on competition and hostility. It's very important. I don't come up over there and speak about politics, but this is my language. This is my thing, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so the bright part, and with a nice picture with that small little girl right there, what she's doing, okay, it's Earthlings' quest to become multiplanetary should be based on conscious minds, values, and ethics. This should apply on our children, but how? And here, I'm sorry, I don't know how much time I still have. So, the launch for the multiplanetary mindset into kids when days, hours, minutes, seconds is now. It is time to prepare our children. A mere space culture is not enough. What we see now, it's a mere space culture. It's not enough at all. Empowerment is not enough. So education, the passage to progress, yes, but the kind of education that we see today? Well, education may be defined as the process that brings a positive change in people's behavior and consequently their lives. It encompasses means of helping to learn how to do things and to find information and make use of them through critical thinking. It is utilized to empower and to responsible, effective, and active citizen, to make a responsible, effective, and active citizens. Through education, cultures, history, and knowledge of societies are transmitted through generations. And that's why consciousness and ethics and values and all this is very important to be there. And not having 20% of curriculum based on religion, I mean, and the differences of religion rooted in our children since they are little. You can be religious, it's fine, it's up to you, but don't base your global civilization on differences, on battles of culture, of political, anyway, I stopped that. So education goes beyond what takes place in classrooms. A child acquires education not only from school, but also outside. We have different types of education. We have formal education and formal education, non-formal education. And I'm not going to go enter into that because what is the most important is my experience with my son with the habits of mind. The habits and the role of parents in preparing multiplanetary species. I will have an article into Immortalis magazine is coming soon, and it's speaking about habits of mind and combining kids over there. Listen to this. It's combining with sci-fi. So I will speak. I spoke with on sci-fis, and it's very easy for children to understand. Like from 12 years old to understand the language of this article, and I will share it with everyone. So habits of mind. Costa et al. 2012 make 16 skills called traits called habit of minds. Learning and leading with habits of mind. 16 essential characteristics of success. This one goes with children, with people, in adults at their jobs, at their homes, or whatever. This is a guideline for me that helped me so much with my parenting skill for my son. So here, habits of mind, we have persistence, managing impulsivity, optimism, taking responsible risk, thinking about own thinking, very important, thinking about own thinking. Listening with understanding and empathy, creating, imagining, and innovating, very, very important. So habits of mind, the notion of habits of mind may be referred to the set of dispositions that describe an inclination toward having in a particular way, despite the term sound oxymoronic. Habits and mind, there's no unexplained in the article, so I'm not going to go through it. The concept of habits of mind is not self-contradictory, since behavior can be habitual while dealing with it and mindful while putting it into action. And here I have some nice pictures that will come here when I unlock those logs there. So based on my experience, like I said, 12 years son, personal experience, the integration of habits of mind in child education is critical in shaping an effective, intelligent, problem-solving mindset. orchestrating these skills with the inspirational role of space and science fiction has led him to a multi-planetary mindset and advocacy. The lockdown experience during the COVID-19 unleashed the child, my son, cosmic mindset, who since then took the initiative to advocate for multi-planetary species education. And here I go to creativity. Is very, very important. So it's one of the most crucial skills for child development. Creativity is beyond the mere artistry, and as it is one of the most critical human traits. As per Bowden, he wrote so much about creativity is the fundamental feature in human intelligence, and we need it in space because creativity is crucial to develop new disruptive technology. Creativity here, you know, to go there, we need the disruptive technology with this mindset and habits of mind for our future. They are the future. We could get there. Maybe we will not be, into Mars. I will not see the first habitat in Mars and so on. But our kids, they will, if they continue with this, cosmic sustainable culture mind.
Malak, we have 2 more minutes, okay?
Yeah. Optimism, very important. And here I have persistence, which is very, very important. And always we go back to Elon Musk and see how he was persistent into his endeavors and what he's done here. So I will wrap up here with empowering generation to embrace a multi-planetary mindset is very important. Availing cosmic knowledge to our children, encourage cosmic thinking, anchor a sense of oneness. We spoke about that earlier. One thing is very, very important is the science fiction, which is, I recall Jules Verne, the science fiction series have catalyzed human intellect innovation, to innovate and find solutions to overcome the boundaries and challenges. Jules Verne, he is also the one who influenced Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, who's the father of rocket science. And then here, conclusion, and rooted in our children's habits of mind skills is essential to not only integrate space in the culture, but to anchor space, a space culture based on ethics, values, skills, and threats through well-shaped habit of mind to prepare them to become multi-planetary generation. It is very important through rooting such culture, the future generation would fulfill our ancestors' dreams to defeat our biological and technological limitation to expand beyond the pale blue dot boundaries. And anchoring sustainability beyond Earth boundaries, where multi-planetary human species expand with ethics, values, and sustainable culture. And that's what we all here trying to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Malak, for such a passionate and thought-provoking presentation. It's clear that you put an enormous amount of thought, an enormous amount of work into putting all of this together, and there's so many wonderful ideas contained within it, and I think so many inspirational ideas as well. So it's been a real privilege to hear you present that today, and thank you very much again.
Thank you for having me.
And I think now we have some questions for our panel, and then after that we have a few questions from the audience. So today we've developed 3 questions to ask our panel, and the first one is, what research do you think needs to be done before we can start to experiment with human reproduction in the space environment? So perhaps Egbert, that might be a good one for you to start with. Oh, you're just on mute still, sorry.
I think it's always the key issues are gravity and radiation issues. So the effects of gravity intervals could be really interesting, because if we can make for example, bedrooms that can be rotating on, for example, Mars settlements, then we could sleep in maybe 1G, and then during the day we can just function in Mars gravity level. And maybe we can even, we will also need like a siesta, and again go to a special place where we will be rotating to more than Mars gravity. So another really interesting area is genome editing. I think many of you have heard about the CRISPR technology, but that's more like 30 years from now before we can really use that, and then we can design people the way we want. But that is ethically a minefield, of course. But for the next few years, learning about gravity and how we can address the radiation issues. Those are the main issues, I think.
Great, thank you very much for that answer. The second question, I guess, follows on from that, and that is, what sort of ideal conditions do you think will be needed to enable humans to reproduce safely in space? And you've already mentioned the issues of gravity and radiation. Are there any other things that you think might play into that ideal conditions for people to be confident about safely having children in space?
Yeah, we need to think about what it means to be human. And I mean, we accepted that there are like artificial elements in our teeth, or replacing parts in our body, and we're moved towards like a transhuman phase where shifting towards, well, becoming a little bit mixed with technology, and if we can allow this to happen, there will be a lot more opportunities to tackle all the challenges. For example, with the artificial wombs, that could really prevent a lot of vulnerable women to be damaged by all the radiation. But that's another way of thinking. I mean, Malak has been talking about the mindset, and require innovation, being open to these concepts. I think that's going to be an important condition as well, to be open to opportunities. It was 40 years ago when IVF had a lot of trouble when it was invented before it was accepted. It was a miracle that only God should be in charge about, or other religious leaders. But if you accept that it's going to be part of being a human, we can move on and push mankind beyond the next frontier.
Yes, I think that there are definitely a lot of issues which will have to be resolved, and it's one interesting point is that NASA has always been dead against anybody with any artificial bits in them, whether it's just a plate on a broken leg or an artificial hip or something like that. They're automatically excluded from going into space. But I sometimes like to tease people a bit and say, well, should we be giving everyone artificial hips and knees so that they won't develop arthritis, which is going to cripple them when they get to Mars, and we actually don't have the facility to do orthopedic joint replacement. So there's a lot to be talked about.
There's a long way to go. Thank you for that.
Yes, indeed. And then our last question, which probably I think Malak has certainly addressed quite a bit in your presentation, is how can we prepare the present and future generations to become multi-planetary, and how can that impact our lives on Earth? Is there anything that you would like to add in addition to all the wonderful sentiments that you've given us already? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Yes, I gave the main ideas. Actually, it's the highlights. It could be always explained, but how it would help that on Earth is very, very important, because if this philosophy that I just explain in the slides, if it's applied into it comes like if it's applied, and we have the habits of minds of that I explained, and the way of consciousness with our children need to be rooted since they are young, at a young age, in order to embrace and grow like that. Do you think we would have problem with the violence and segregation in both nations? And do you think that we would have issues with climate change and the responsible behavior that we are seeing right now, with always putting the economic interest on the expenses of everything else? I don't think so. I think that Earth will be paradise. I mean, it's not an utopic idea, but it's true. At the end of the day, we made the damage as a human. We made the damage. The problem with the environmental issues, with what's going on right now, with the wars and everything. If we grow up from the beginning with the right mindset, with the consciousness I explained, and with that behavior, I think our life on Earth will be much better. Even if we did not physically go to outer space, we embrace those that philosophy and those ethics and values. I believe that we will be in much better place than today. And sorry. Yes, and we will not look to make, let's say, to try to track the development of the with the for the SDGs and because it will be automatically there. So this is the thing. It will be the habit of embracing this kind of culture in order to make our lives better.
Yes, I think that's a really good way to sum it up. And I think for all of us who are interested in space, it's very easy for us to understand the sentiment that there is no planet B, and that we really should be looking after the planet we have and all pulling together in order to do that. And it's always a little incomprehensible to me that a lot of people around the world just can't get that idea. And I really don't know what the answer is. I know, as you've said, how things should be, but how we get everyone to do that, I think that's the really hard part. So do we have time for one more question, or do we need to finish here?
We finished the third questions, right, Rowena?
We have, yes. There's just one very short, interesting question, if you think we have time. One of our attendees has asked, what language should multi-planet generations talk? So any thoughts from our panelists on that one?
Algorithm.
or who should represent humanity? Oh,
yes.
Should we meet intelligent life?
Exactly. This could be a subject for another show, you know?
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Oh, that's probably a good note to finish on then. So on behalf of everyone, I would like to say a very sincere thank you to both Egbert and Malak for the wonderful presentations and discussions tonight. I think it's been another great show, and thank you all very much for coming along. And I've been watching all the interesting comments in the chat as well, so I think there's been a lot of good conversation going on. So thank you, everyone.